The 7 June Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Holt, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rogers.
Present.
Mr. Rogers represents the Berkeley District, and he'll be participating remotely this evening due to medical reasons that prevent his physical attendance. Ms. Knoll.
Present.
Ms. Knoll represents the Stonehouse District. Mr. Rose, who represents the Roberts District and is vice chair of the commission, can't be with us this evening. Mr. Haldeman.
Here.
Mr. Haldeman is an at-large member. Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor is an at-large member. Mr. Kropp.
Here.
Mr. Kropp represents the Powhatan District. Mr. Polster.
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District and is chair of the commission. I'm Paul Holt, Director of Community Development and Planning for the county. It's my pleasure to serve as the commission, and sitting to my left this evening is Ms. Liz Parman, our Deputy County Attorney. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. The first item on our agenda is the public comment and the topics that are not subject to a public hearing for tonight. Do we have any speaker cards?
Do not.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on any other issue not before the public hearing for tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public comment. The first item that we have on our next item on our agenda is reports from the commission. Mr. Rogers from the DRC.
Thanks, Mr. Polster. So the Development Review Committee, I guess I should pause. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
All right. Development Review Committee met at 4 p.m. on May 24th, 2023, and we had 3 cases that week. Committee members present were myself, Steve Rogers, Chair, Rob Rose, Barbara Knoll, and Frank Polster. We also had some staff members that included Josh Crump, Principal Planner, Thomas Weissong, Senior Planner, Ben Lepiker, Planner, and Jose Rubiero, Planner. The first of the 3 situations we looked at was C-TAC 23-TAC 0030 JCSA, which was the Five Forks Water Treatment Plant Building Addition. They proposed adding a structure, an accessory structure of about 1,800 square feet to the existing main facility. And the reason for this, this additional structure is to safely store chemicals. Because of a special use permit, a condition in it requires that the DRC review any proposed accessory structures. As it turns out, this addition is going to go on the back of the main treatment facility, where there is already an existing cement slab to put the structure on. This does result in the loss of just a few parking spaces, and it also reduces the amount of space for large trucks to be able to drive up to the loading dock, but that can be compensated by creating additional parking and more adequate truck turnaround with very minor paving improvements. Those will be at the front of the building. Staff found the proposed addition was consistent with the adopted SIP conditions, and after discussion, the DRC agreed with that assessment. None of this proposed construction is visible from the public right-of-way, located in an area that is already previously disturbed, and it doesn't change the basic characteristics of the development. A motion was made to approve, and the motion passed 4-0. Second case we looked at was SP 23-0024, which was a proposal to add additional on-site parking spaces at the Life Point East Church facility. Proposal consists of a parking area, and that area would encroach into an area that was previously designated for wooded preservation and for buffering. Proposal is for an additional 116 parking spaces, and they need those spaces due to the church's significant increase in attendance over the last 2 years. The need for the additional parking has prompted this parking adjustment request. And in fact, what people do now is they park on the dirt field adjacent to the church. And so the spaces are really going right where people are presently parking. Following discussion, DRC determined that the alternative parking lot was not expected to negatively impact neighboring property owners, and staff recommended approval of this alternate layout with a condition that additional landscaping and buffering adjacent to those parking spaces would be reviewed by the planning director, all as part of the site plan review process, and ensure mitigation of impacts to neighboring properties. The motion again was made after discussion, and it passed by a vote of 4-0. The last case we looked at is SELN TAC 22 TAC 0006. This involves the settlement at Powhatan Creek, Phase 4, where they need a water line exception proposal. This is to put the installation of a water line within a landscape buffer. And they need it because the proposed development has additional water line needs for the additional townhouses being built. The area is designated in Phase 4 of Powhatan settlement. Those applicants requested to run a JCSA water line through a 150-foot buffer, which currently runs along Monticello Avenue. The only disturbance of any note was that does involve the removal of 3 trees. And as part of their proposal, along with other landscaping fulfillment, they are going to replace those 3 trees. So the staff concluded the disturbance proposed in that designated 150-foot buffer is consistent with the master plan, and therefore they recommended approval of the request to allow this water line to run through the 150-foot buffer along Monticello Avenue. Motion was made and subject to the conditions and the placement of the trees. That motion also passed by a vote of 4-0. So subject to any questions, that's the DRC's report.
Any questions for Mr. Rogers? Thank you, Steve. No questions. So our next item is the consent agenda, and the consent agenda items are deemed to be non-controversial. Does anyone wish to pull an agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to remove site plan -22-0006 settlement at Powhatan Creek, Phase 4 water line exception. As my firm manages the settlement at Powhatan Creek, I would like to recuse myself from any discussion and abstain from any vote to avoid any appearance of a conflict of interest.
Mr. Holt, we have a motion on the floor. You call the roll.
We do. So this will be for the remaining items, items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
1 through 4?
Only 1 through 4.
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
And Mr. Polster?
Aye. So we've pulled item 5. Is there any discussion on it?
No.
If I do not hear any discussion or comments, can I hear a motion to
So move,
Motion to approve.
motion to approve, yes.
have a motion on the board, field, on the floor?
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Abstain?
Abstain. Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
And Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're now moving on to the public hearing, and the first item we have is SUP 23-0014, 7649 Cypress Drive, rental of rooms. You're going to take that.
Yeah, I'll kick this one off. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good evening. So the applicant has requested a postponement of this consideration of this case until your July 5th meeting. They're still working on resolving some comments they received as part of the initial plan review from the health department and need a little bit of extra time to bring that to fruition. We have advertised the public hearing tonight, so that should be opened. And at such point that you're ready for a motion, it would be to postpone this until July 5th, and we would leave the public hearing open until that time.
All right, I will open the public hearing, and if anybody wishes to speak, but if you speak tonight, you won't be able to speak at a later date. Is there anybody wishing to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Let's continue it until
I continue
July
it to the
Yes, sir.
5th of July. So I'm asking for a motion for continuance to the 5th of July.
So moved.
So moved.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
And Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
The next item is SUP 23-0015, David A. Nice Builder Office and Parking Extension. Ms. Costello, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Mr. Brandon Nice of David A. Nice Builders has applied for a special use permit to allow for the expansion of a contractor's office on 2 parcels located at 4575 and 4579 Ware Creek Road. The combined acreage of the parcels are approximately 3.93 acres. The parcels are zoned A1, general agricultural, and designated rural lands on the comprehensive plan land use map. A contractor's office and storage is a specially permitted use in A1 zoning districts. The 2,000 square foot expansion would bring the existing 6,100 square foot building to a total of 8,100 square feet. The proposal also includes additional parking spaces. When the building at 4575 Ware Creek Road was first used as an office in 1988, a contractor's office and warehouse was a permitted use in the A1 district. The ordinance was amended in 1989 to require a special use permit for this use. The building has been expanded 3 times, receiving SUPs in 1999, 2003, and 2012. Per the adopted comprehensive plan, retail and other commercial uses are encouraged to be located at planned commercial locations on major thoroughfares inside the PSA. However, certain commercial uses which require very low intensity settings relative to the site in which it will be located may be considered on a case-by-case basis, provided such uses are compatible with the natural and rural character of the area and are in accordance with the rural lands development standards. The current proposal will bring the office use to 8,100 square feet with 30 employees and customers who visit the site. Typically, office uses of this size and nature are encouraged to be located inside the primary service area. Expansions of this nature may begin to affect the compatibility of this use with the natural and rural character of this area. However, staff finds that the following elements are consistent with the rural lands guidance. The boundary line extinguishment with the adjacent property would mean that the use is on a larger amount of acreage, more consistent with the guidance regarding low-intensity settings. Staff finds that the existing office has the appearance of a single-family residential structure, which complements the rural character of the area. The expansion will match the materials and colors of the existing structure. The tree line will largely remain undisturbed except for any clearing needed for the BMP required, and this is stated in condition number 9. Landscaping will be added to screen the additional parking and structure from Ware Creek Road with condition number 8. In addition, the proposal would not be located in an environmentally sensitive area, would not include any new driveways, and will have lighting that complies with condition number 5. The scale of the use does not necessitate any capacity improvements to Ware Creek Road. Staff finds that the proposal is compatible with surrounding zoning and development and generally consistent with the 2045 comprehensive plan. Staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the attached conditions. I'll be happy to answer any questions the Commission may have, and the applicant is also available. Thank you.
Any questions for staff or the applicant?
Just one if I could. You know, one of the conditions talks about hours of operation for the business shall be limited to 7:30 to 5:30. Is that for the office itself, or is that for the general operation of like people coming to work, people leaving? I mean, I'm just curious what the expectation is.
It's our understanding that the office hours are 8 to 5, so we made the office hours 7:30 to 5:30 to allow for people to come in and go into the site. But it's people coming to work and then customers come in there as well.
So, just in the construction world, you might find that you're up against deadlines or have to work nights or weekends and the like. Does this preclude anybody from arriving to work and then departing in a work truck?
During those hours, no. Typically, I think we would allow the once in a while or maybe non-occasional time when they may work late, but for the majority, it's 8 to 5.
Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if not, thank you very much, Ms. Costello. Anything from the applicant on this? Let me open the public hearing first, okay? Open the public hearing and from the applicant.
Good evening, Chase Grog with Land Tech Resources, 205 Bullifonts Boulevard, Suite E, Williamsburg, Virginia, 23188. No, just pretty much here to answer any questions, pretty much straightforward, local business trying to expand, give their office staff some more elbow room in the office and increase their parking just so they're not parking all over the place. Happy to answer any questions you have, as well as the applicant is here.
Any questions for Mr. Chase? Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards? Hearing and seeing none, does anybody else wish to speak on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion.
I would simply say I am not favorable to conditions which limit the hours of operation. So I simply, especially in the construction world, I mean, working late, nights, weekends, deliveries, pouring concrete, those types of things on the job site often go late. So, if it were clarified to say that it was the office was Monday through Friday, 8 to 5:30, 7:30 to 5:30 or something, I just find it really, we've talked about these with farming applications and other pieces, and I just find it's not necessary to have it. So, I mean, this is a pretty rural area. I can't imagine it's disturbing anybody if somebody were to come in and pick up equipment on a weekend or come back to the site later in the evening. So,
Any comment on that, Mr. Holt?
No, I think that was a staff really just a recommendation and recognition of it being a rural area and the fact that there are some occasional residential dwelling units out there and preserving some of the rural character. But.
Did the business object to them?
Does the applicant have any opinion on this at all? Yeah, please come up and please
On
tell us your
camera.
name.
Yeah, Brandon Nice, 4571 Ware Creek. Thanks for the consideration. It's primarily the office staff, so our equipment is actually housed at another location. So we do have some staff that come in late from time to time, just navigating kids and stuff. But generally, it's 7:30 to 5:30. So there's no. I appreciate not having the constraint to it for sure, but it's super rural. We own the lot next to it, and we've had the same neighbors for almost 50 years. So that's where we've been since 1975.
I think the concern that we're having on this is that once you have a condition like that, that's part of the SUP, and that SUP is forever and ever
Yes, sir.
with that property.
Yeah.
And so I think what was being offered to you is an opportunity that if something happens in the future.
No, I appreciate it very much. I mean, I would very much like not to have a constraint to it for sure. But I didn't know if that was a possibility, so that's why I'm open to it for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more discussion on Mr. O'Connor's suggestion?
Just playing the devil's advocate, asking the question, because this property or these conditions transfer in perpetuity, if another business moves in there that maybe is not as benign as this one, is there a potential issue that if the condition were removed, for example, that the business could operate at all sorts of odd hours?
Could, without an SUP condition, a future business could.
I wasn't going to mention this because I didn't think it was relevant, but I think if this application were to build this facility from scratch right now on a vacant lot, I would probably vote against it, or recommend against it. And so that feeds into my thoughts on the time limits. I agree with Mr. Kropf that this isn't going to be with the same owner in perpetuity, but the conditions will be in perpetuity, and it's a country road with other people, but there's a housing development right behind it. I'd like to see them stay in, the time limits stay in.
Is there any other discussion or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve permit 23-0015.
With the conditions, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Crop,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor,
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman,
Aye.
Ms. Knoll,
Aye.
Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
and Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion
Thank you
carries.
very much. Okay, so we are on to our next item, Z-23-003 and SUP-23-0013, the Overlook at Rochambeau. And Mr. Rissinger, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Mr. Howard Price of AES Consulting Engineers has applied on behalf of Jessica Akins of the Wedding Company of Williamsburg for a special use permit and rezoning to develop an event facility at 4097 Rochambeau Drive. The property is 15.02 acres in size and currently zoned A1 General Agricultural, designated rural lands on a 2045 comprehensive plan, and is located outside the primary service area. This segment of Rochambeau Drive is considered to be a major collector road. The proposed event facility would include a 11,105 square foot event venue building, 2 1,284 square foot accessory cottages, and an outdoor ceremony area with a pavilion to host weddings and other events with a maximum of 300 attendees, including staff and vendors. The A1 zoning district considers event facilities as places of public assembly used primarily as event facilities, which are subject to performance standards in the zoning ordinance. SCPs are required for such event facilities which do not meet all of the performance standards. Accordingly, this proposal requires an SUP because the property is not located along an arterial road and the proposed structures and parking areas are located on soils which are considered to be farmland of statewide importance by the USDA. Additionally, an SUP is also required for the project as it includes more than 10,000 square feet of commercial floor area and proposes more than 100 additional peak hour trips to the property. Along with the SUP, the applicant has applied to rezone the property from A1 General Agricultural to A1 General Agricultural with proffers. The voluntary proffers would require that the accessory cottages only be used by event attendees and not as dwelling units or short-term rentals. Staff has proposed SUP conditions to mitigate potential impacts of the proposal, including limiting the maximum number of event attendees to 300, restricting the hours of operation to be between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m., requiring a 75-foot vegetated buffer around the perimeter of the property, and requirements for stormwater management to occur on the property. The proposed access to the site is a right-in, right-out entrance on eastbound Rochambeau Drive. Vehicles traveling to the site on westbound Rochambeau Drive would turn left onto the eastbound lanes at an existing median break approximately 500 feet west of the property. All vehicles leaving the site would be required to turn right onto eastbound Rochambeau Drive to the intersection with Croker Road. A traffic impact analysis was completed for this proposal, which recommends the installation of a left turn lane on westbound Rochambeau Drive at the existing median break and a right turn lane on eastbound Rochambeau Drive at the proposed entrance to the property. Staff has proposed an SUP condition to require the turn lane improvements be bonded prior to final site plan approval and installed prior to issuance of any certificate of occupancy. The SUP conditions would also require that signage stating that U-turns are prohibited be installed where Rochambeau Drive converges to a 2-lane road east of the property. As stated in an email provided to the Planning Commission, staff, VDOT, and the applicant team met prior to tonight's meeting to discuss the proposed access to the property. It was determined that the proposed entrance location is acceptable without being aligned with a median break. The applicant also intends to move the curb cut of the entrance approximately 125 feet west of where it is currently shown on a master plan so that it would not require an access management exception. If that approach is feasible, staff will work with the applicant to have that adjustment shown on the master plan prior to the Board of Supervisors meeting. Staff finds this proposal to be compatible with surrounding development and consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. With the additional coordination resolving comments from VDOT, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions and voluntary proffers. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time, and the applicant team is also available. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
I just have a question about, you said they could move the driveway further west?
Correct. If you,
Where are they gonna move it to?
it will be on the same flag stem of the property where it's shown in this.
The new one that you drew?
Correct, I believe,
It's
provided
on
by the
here.
applicant.
Okay, it's on here. I didn't know if that was the old one or the new one. Okay, good.
And so functionally, it'll be providing the same access point, just located further westward to provide that separation from that church driveway on the adjacent property.
But it's still not aligned with the
Still
break.
not aligned, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Well, Mr. Rissinger, I want to thank you very much for the work you did with the staff as well as the VDOT to try to resolve this. And as I understood it, one of the other things you had in that email, that it wasn't possible to put a median cut across there either, which is why the VDOT folks realized that this was really the only way they could do that. Thank you very much. All right, I will open up the public hearing. And I have two speaker cards. Ms. Jessica Aiken.
Hello, Jessica Aiken, 8415 Attleboro Way, Williamsburg, Virginia. Good evening. My name is Jessica Aiken, and I am the founder and owner of Wedding Company of Williamsburg, and I am the applicant for the SUP and rezoning application before you this evening. I was born and raised in James City County and attended James City County schools. After attending college, I returned to James City County and was fortunate enough to gain valuable event and hospitality experience through working various industry positions at Williamsburg Event Rentals, Kingsmill Resort, and the College of William and Mary. Eventually, I decided to venture out on my own and start my own business over 10 years ago. Since that time, I have grown my company to become one of the area's premier wedding planning and consulting firms, and have been blessed to develop personal and working relationships with other local event vendors and venues. After recognizing the need for additional wedding and event venues in the county in 2016, my husband Tristan and I began an effort to expand the business from solely planning into the operation of an actual wedding and event venue. We identified an agricultural property in Upper James City County, developed business plans, and secured investments to make our dream a reality. However, we were dismayed to learn that the county's existing zoning ordinances would not support such a project at that time. Rather than giving up on my vision, I then became involved with the Planning Commission's Policy Committee to try to develop changes to the ordinance to allow vendors such as myself to bring additional wedding and event venue spaces to the county. After several months of work, I was overjoyed in 2017 when the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors passed the changes and updated requirements to potentially allow businesses like mine to expand in the county. Since that time, my husband and I have pursued various projects and properties in the county, including the Ambler's House. For various reasons, unfortunately, none of these projects ever made it past the conceptual stage. However, I was very excited when the current property at Rochambeau became available. This property met most of the county's requirements, was close to my home, and was within a price range that my business could support and still be profitable. We have already made a significant investment into pursuing this property and trying to make it fit the needs of our clients while also maintaining compliance with the county ordinance. My team and I have put a lot of effort into ensuring that this project is well thought out, will be minimally impactful to surrounding properties, and is also consistent with James City County's comprehensive plan and existing ordinances. As a James City County native, I realize what a special place we live in. I can only imagine what a difficult task the Commission has in trying to balance the needs of wants of citizens and businesses, all while trying to maintain our special character. I realize that I'm seeking to expand my business and bring a much-needed addition to the local event industry, but I also see the value in maintaining that special character and feel we have here in the county. This is something that my husband and I do not take lightly. It is for that reason that we have made it a point to work with mostly James City County-based businesses on this project, including AES Consulting Engineers, Guernsey Tinkle Architects, and Adams Septic Evaluation and Design. If passed, it is also our intent to contract with a James City County-based builder to bring our project to life. I believe that my project team and I have put forward a very reasonable application. Our application addresses most of all the points needed to maintain compliance, but there are still some minor concerns with VDOT, which we have worked hard to address. I have a few members of my team here with me this evening, including Howard Price with AES Consulting Engineers and Carl Holtgren of Grove Slade Transportation Planning and Engineers to review how we have addressed the remaining concerns, and I'd love to invite them up now. That's okay.
Please.
Thank you very much. Howard Price with AES Consultant Engineers, 5248 Old Town Road. I believe Paul handed out the latest sketch, which reflects the work that our team and staff did with VDOT, which we finalized this morning, which shows the relocation of the entrance, which would create the proper separation so we would no longer need an access management exception. Consequently, that resolves all the key issues that VDOT had going forward, in addition to the conditions that Mr. Reisinger presented to you. At this point, myself and Mr. Holcomb with Grove Slade will be happy to answer any technical questions you may have in regards to this plan.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. The next speaker card I have is Mr. Scott Bauer.
Good evening, Planning Commission members and Mr. Holt. My name is Scott Bowser, 5404 Mary Lane, Williamsburg, Virginia, 23188. And I'll be very brief because I am a member of Faith Baptist Church, and I was just asked to come to get questions answered, and because of the presentation, they have been answered. We were concerned about aesthetics, noise, and how the traffic would impact on Rochambeau. So I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and I look forward to hearing more from the Overlook as they progress on this event menu. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public comment and open it up for discussions or a motion.
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's fine. No, please.
Come on up.
I'll reopen the public comment, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Odessa Braxton Strong. I live at 4029 Rochambeau Drive, and I'm also the property owner in front of the proposed Overlook at Rochambeau. One of my concerns is there going to be any noise restriction for the property if I decide in the future for my family to build on the property that I have in front of Rochambeau? And also wanted to know how is that going to affect the driveway, because I still feel like that's going to be a confusion corner trying to get out of that driveway.
Thank you very much. I will close the, is there anybody else that wishes to speak? I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion. Can we ask the staff to come up and talk to the conditions, please, so that we can address the concern? Because I know that we have some operating hour timeframes for the venue on that.
Certainly. So this would be subject to the county's noise ordinance, which would restrict audible noise from crossing property lines between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., or sorry, outside of those hours. After 11 p.m., you would not be allowed to have audible noise cross a property line. With the proposed conditions, we are further restricting that to 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. and requiring that departure of those event attendees have already occurred by 11 p.m.
About the light pollution.
The light pollution, the conditions restrict the height of light poles on the property to 20 feet, which is 10 feet less than the ordinance would prescribe normally. And also restrict there being any light trespass across any property lines.
Was there any discussion with the VDOT with that property there and the turn lane in?
Yes, VDOT expressed that it would be preferable that there be a shared access for that property. If it was a commercial development, there may be an access management procedure that has to be worked out at that time. But for a residential property, they would not be subject to that same restriction.
Thank you very much. If you would like, after the meeting, Mr. Riesinger would gladly meet with you to be able to go through those conditions with you so that you understand that. And as part of the process, the conditions will be part of this approval, which if they are broken, then it breaks the conditions. Okay, so it is enforceable in that regard. Thank you, Mr. Kissinger. Any other discussion or motion on this issue?
I just want to say, I think it's going to be a great addition to the Stonehouse District, which is important to me. And I'm all for it, so I'd like to propose that we accept rezoning of 230003 special use permit 230013, the Overlook.
You have a motion.
I have a motion on the floor. Mr. Crop.
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor.
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman.
Aye.
Ms. Knoll.
Aye.
Mr. Rogers.
Aye.
And Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
That closes our planning hearing, our public hearings for this evening, and I'm moving on to Planning Commission and considerations. And for the month of July, the boss coverage is Mr. Haldeman, and for the month of June, Mr. Kraft.
Yes, sir.
Are there any requests? All right, next item we have is Planning Director's report. Mr. Holt.
So should I talk slow to try to outweigh some of this rain, or should I? Otherwise, I'll be sitting around. I don't have anything additional this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The last item we have is Planning Commission discussions and requests. Anything for discussion, requests? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn till our 5 July meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are concluded. Thank you very much for coming out.